And welcome into the Tuesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Hope everybody's off to a wonderful start this morning. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on? Happy Tuesday to you.
Yeah, I'm doing terrible. Thanks for asking. Happy Tuesday to you.
Sorry I asked.
Yeah. I felt better for a little while yesterday when I had Toradol coursing through my hindquarters and down my leg. But unfortunately, the magic can only last so long.
So is that something that you could do every day, or is that just a temporary type of thing?
Yeah, as a one-time shot, and then I got some steroids now to take every day, so hopefully that'll work.
Yes, hopefully so. Ian Safar, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing great, thanks. Fell asleep at halftime.
Did you?
Yeah,
Nice.
so I missed the second half. But yeah, doing good, thanks.
Good. Absolutely. We got a lot to get into in the program today. Sean Rourke from NHL.com will be with us at 7:30. We will get into the Cup final, which could conclude tonight with him, and so a couple of Preds topics to get into with Sean as well. Stephen Holder from ESPN will be with us at 8 o'clock. We will get into the Colts and the AFC South with him. So looking forward to that discussion coming up a little bit later in the program. Joe, let's start there. The Thunder win last night, 120-109, the final score. We talked about it yesterday about how it felt like the Pacers let an opportunity go by the wayside in Game 4, where they basically led the entire game until late in the fourth quarter, and then Oklahoma City comes back and they get the win. Last night, it kind of went the way that I thought, where Oklahoma City was in control for most of the game, and they end up winning by double digits and now are right on the doorstep of winning an NBA championship. So, Joe, what did you make of Game 5, the performance by the Thunder, and where things now stand for Indiana on the brink of elimination heading back for Game 6?
Yeah, one of the things about it happens every year in the playoffs, there's just things that, because again, I don't watch gobs of NBA regular season basketball. I try to watch everything I can in the playoffs. And one revelation for me certainly has been Jalen Williams. As SGA is the MVP, and SGA, whenever last night we saw it, there were some key points where it's just like Indiana has the momentum, like TJ McConnell's going nuts. They're changing the game. Siakam's going nuts. And then it's just like, all right, SGA is going to go ahead and just back you down and get a bucket. But Jalen Williams also unstoppable. Like the two of them together, when they want to just get downhill, they're at least going to draw a foul. And Jalen Williams' ability to finish with both hands under duress, body control, he's a total revelation to me. I did not realize he was this good. And again, it's just part of why just that trio of stars for them and what they are now, possibly a champion real soon, what they're going to be, especially like Holmgren, like there's still a lot of meat on the bone there for him to get better. So, but Jalen Williams, man, incredible player. And the thing is, if Tyrese Halliburton has a good game, I think Indiana steals that one last night. That was the missing piece for them. Yep. And he, it's like, I appreciate how he plays. He doesn't force it. He doesn't force anything offensively, but also, to me, he was just a little bit too tentative in the first half. And then you have some turnovers out of that. And to me, he's got to look to score and put pressure on Oklahoma City that way early. He's not hitting his threes anymore. Like he's gone totally ice cold from deep. You take that away, then, you take away a lot of his game. But it's just too bad that he couldn't have given them at least like a pretty good game to a good game. I think they have a chance to steal that one.
Yeah, Halliburton ends up 0 for 6 on the night with 4 points. So, first off, he didn't shoot a whole lot. I think he's pretty clearly battling through some things, and he's kind of talked about that a little bit. So, I don't know, like, how much better is that going to get in Game 6 here? Like, I look at it, Joe, this series, and if you're Indiana, you had it 2-1, and you were up in the second half of Game 4 with a chance to extend that series to 3-1, and you let it get away from you. And it kind of feels like that was the tipping point in this whole thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe Indiana can go back home and win in game 6 and force a game 7. I do not love their odds of beating them 2 times in a row, both back at home and then back in Oklahoma City for game 7. It feels like Indiana kind of let it get away from them in game 4, and that Oklahoma City is about to ride off into the sunset here with a championship.
Yeah, I agree. But you know what? Win that game at home, give your home fans, put everything you have into that game, give them a thrill, and then just put the pressure on Oklahoma City. Cause I think I agree with you. I think most people agree with you. It's sort of like, okay, when does Oklahoma City get to celebrate a championship? So put the pressure on them of a game 7, and you never know. Sometimes those game 7s can be wacky, you know? That's all you just have to focus on. And I think Indiana does have a chance, absolutely, to at least force that. And maybe, I mean, because last night it was getting, again, McConnell, his shift off the bench was pretty wild. And then, Siakam is going nuts. And it's like, okay, I mean, they've really got, you can, maybe see Oklahoma City tightening up, missing some shots they'd been making. They got answers, they probably will again and win a game, but like Indiana can, they can force this and at least make it interesting, and then we'll see how this young Oklahoma City team responds to game 7 pressure. I'd love to be able to see that.
You mentioned Jalen Williams. He had 40 last night, so 14 of 25 from the field, 40 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31 and 10, 31 points, 10 assists for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander last night, which is just absurd the way that he's able to be consistent and a playmaker for that team. And again, like he's so different to watch, Joe, because there are so many players and really teams in the NBA that have just totally abandoned the mid-range shot. I mean, they won't even consider it. And it's such a big part of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's game. It's kind of like a throwback. Like I was watching with my brother the other night. He was like, it's kind of like Kobe. Like, you just shoot it from anywhere. Like, in the mid-range shot with him has been such a weapon for him.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get two, I mean, if you can get a bucket. Yeah, some coaches are like Nate Oates would cut him. You're like, sorry, SGA, you can't play for me at Alabama. Good thing you went to Kentucky. But that's the thing. If a team plays good defense, the whole idea of good defense in basketball is based nowadays is to force you to take a tough 2-point jumper. So if you can make those shots, well, there you go. You have an answer, even when people play great defense on you. But yeah, he's comfortable in that. He'll go ahead and just find his spot, and the turnaround, fade away, it doesn't matter. And obviously when he gets going downhill. But again, like Jalen Williams, this guy, he's played his whole career in college at Santa Clara.
Yep.
Kind of an anonymous guy. Here's another example, not to get people all fired up and start yelling at me about my take. But like Jalen Williams is a great example of like, let's take Jalen Williams, who's just a guy in this league. Not last night, but he's a guy in this league. He's a good player in this league. But let's take him and his skill set, his size, length, everything, and transport him 30, 40 years.
Jordan would have no chance.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. Not at all. But I think he might stand out a little bit more. He might stand out. A lot of guys in this league who are guys who would not just be guys back then. But
Magic, step aside. It's Jalen Williams time.
Now, see, now don't get me mad. I'm already in pain.
Isaiah Thomas, move on, son. This is the Jalen Williams show.
It's funny because, Isaiah, would Isaiah destroy people today? I mean, I love the guy, but he might have a little more trouble today. Speaking of trouble, I got to say, there's been a lot of chatter about this, and it's like halftime, like the Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick
it's brutal.
Perkins, yeah, and it's all, and again, it's like Stephen A. It's like he just has to scream and like the whole show last night was just like, no excuses, and it's just they just want to rip Halliburton, And Bob Myers is like, well, well, maybe let's consider some. No. Stephen A's got to. It's not very good. It's just not very good. I mean, Kendrick Perkins is okay. His analysis, like he does break some stuff down, at times, so that's fine, and he's kind of funny sometimes. I just don't like Stephen A. Just doesn't really add much to it at all.
They need the inside the NBA crew to get over there in a hurry.
Yeah, and they'll bump them out. I understand that like Stephen A. attracts big audience and First Take has like great numbers and all that stuff, and that's great. But like, I don't want Stephen A. Smith on NFL coverage. I don't know what he's bringing. He just doesn't ever have analysis. Like I just don't. There's so little analysis, and there's just mostly like just
Solitaire,
kind of ripping people. Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah, playing a little solitaire.
Hey, I played solitaire last week at the gym when I was riding the exercise bike. I had a great time. Solitaire is an underrated game. I don't blame Stephen A. for sitting there in the middle of the game in the NBA Finals playing a little solitaire. Good for him.
I mean, I guess I would tend to believe him that it was during a commercial break, but I like the picture of him. Like, you can't see the court, right? So you can't tell. But I would tend to believe that he was actually watching a game. I freaking hope so.
I would too. 615-737-1025, our phone number.
Sorry, did I stutter?
615-737-1025, our phone number. We got a lot to get into on the program here today. We will get into Cam Ward making headlines for interesting reasons a little bit later this hour, which has caused some reaction on Titans Twitter a little bit later in the hour. Coming up next, though, a sporting event going on right now that Rexrode is throwing out there. Is anybody watching? Does anyone care? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
1-2. Swing and a miss! Greatness from Gage! A no-hitter! America's hearts, but they ran into Gage Wood today. A program record 19 strikeouts, the second most ever at the Men's College World Series.
That was Gage Wood from Arkansas yesterday, throwing a no-hitter, which was the first no-hitter in the College World Series in 65 years as Arkansas wins against Murray State. Murray State eliminated from the College World Series. Arkansas stays alive. And Joe, as Mitch Sherman at The Athletic points out, probably the greatest pitching performance in the history of the College World Series. The stats would bear that out. And if you look at it, I mean, it's the first no-hitter in the College World Series in 65 years, and he struck out 19 guys. So quite a performance yesterday from Gage Wood of Arkansas. Joe, as we know, no Tennessee, no Vanderbilt in the College World Series. So what you're wondering is how many people around here are watching the College World Series and how many people care about it with no Tennessee and no Vanderbilt. Joe, are you watching the College World Series with no Tennessee and Vanderbilt participating?
I am, but not as, inning by inning, can't miss an inning as I have in previous years. So, that's for me. I've really enjoyed Coastal Carolina. It's pretty amazing what they're doing. I mean, we're talking about 25 wins in a row. I believe they play today. So 25 wins in a row.
And they are the Chanticleers, not the Chanticleers, and do not make that mistake around their coach.
Is that right? I missed
So he opened his press conference the other day. He's like, everybody say it with me. Chanticleers, not Chanticleers, Chanticleers. It was like, kind of Mariota type thing.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Come out and tell us about it. Well, Marcus, when someone says, "Oh, hey, I'm here with Marcus Mariota," correct him. Cam Ward, if you want to be Cameron, first day of training camp, get to that microphone and say, "I'm Cameron. I'm not Cam."
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Honestly, I didn't know that. It's the Chanticleers.
That's what he says.
Kind of weird. Isn't that weird?
I love it.
Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. It's like when I say Nevada and people from Nevada are like, dude, it's Nevada. It's not Nevada. Now, Colorado, that's an interesting one.
It's Colorado.
But Joel Klatt, former Colorado quarterback, will tell you it's Colorado.
The Colorado people that I know tell me it's Colorado. So Joel Klatt can pound sand.
I wonder if is it like Colorado against Colorado State? Is it something like that? Some kind of a rivalry with the pronunciation?
Could be.
But anyway, Coastal Carolina, they're a pretty cool element of this. Obviously, Arkansas loses that first game to LSU, but then you get this unbelievable performance. 119 pitches, and he almost had a perfect game. He hit a better in the 8th inning. I mean, it's insane. Like you said, Mitch Sherman wrote this story. Like, is it the greatest pitching performance in College World Series history? I mean, by any measure, yes. So Chris Burke says there were 5 balls in fair territory that he didn't have a part in making. I don't understand what that means, making the out. But 5 balls in fair territory, is that all they put into play? Is that right?
Sounds like it. Yeah. If you strike out 19 guys, it doesn't leave very much left for them to put the ball in play.
That's true. That's true. So then you strike out 19 guys. There's 8 more outs left. So 5 and then maybe there were like 3 fouled
off. Yeah.
Fouled off, or caught in foul territory. That's pretty insane. Hitting high 90s in the 9th inning. So I think that's an accelerator for people to watch this. Again, Arkansas, I think, still has the goods to win the whole thing. But yeah, it just feels different to me, and obviously less exciting because neither of the teams we have in this state are there.
I got to be honest with you. I've not watched 1 second of the College World Series, and I don't know that I plan to. Maybe the final series. A couple things on that. Number one, it's hard for me to care much without Tennessee or Vanderbilt in it, just being honest. I mean, that's where I'm at with college baseball. If Tennessee and Vanderbilt are playing, I will watch. If Tennessee and Vanderbilt are not playing, it's hard for me to care all that much. And the other part is, as of right now, it has been going up against the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals. And frankly, I will be watching the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup Final before I'm watching the College World Series without Tennessee or Vanderbilt in it. Now, when they get to the final series, maybe I'll watch at that point. Like Ty on the text line says, Coastal Carolina, super cool story. It's a check the ESPN app at the end of the day sporting event for me, except for the Coastal Carolina games. I'll casually watch them. It is fun to watch and see what they've done. But I will be totally honest. I have not watched 1 second of the College World Series yet without Tennessee and Vanderbilt in it.
Yeah, and I'm certainly making the same choice when it's either when they're or the night games when they're up against either of these NBA or NHL games. It's the callback channel. It's the during commercial flip back to the College World Series for me. So but as it gets going, it would be cool if it's Coastal Carolina. I think maybe one of now. So UCLA doing awfully well too.
Yep.
I'm trying to. In fact, that's the thing. I'm not even keeping totally on top of this. So the Cards are still around, right? The Cards are alive. Unfortunately, Murray State is gone.
Yes.
So that's one of the cool Cinderella stories is gone. But yeah, then you get into, I'm with you. You get to the final series, and by then you may be totally done with these other series. What are the last possible the game sevens are possibly what days this week?
Well, you've got the hockey game, which I believe would be, I think it's Friday. I think they would play Friday. It would be Friday game 7 tonight. So that means basketball is probably Saturday, if I had to guess. Maybe Sunday.
Yeah.
It's Sunday. So a game 7
Sunday.
would be Sunday for the Thunder. So there you go. Those are the
Which
last
actually,
possible dates.
So if I remember correctly, then that could actually be a pretty cool doubleheader because it could be final series game 2 during the day Sunday, NBA Finals at night. So there you go. So hopefully we'll get all that because then we go into the great void.
Yes, we do go into the great
void. You're a golf fan.
Hey, got the British Open coming up, which is no longer called the British Open. David in Arkansas on the text line says, as a Razorback fan, it was great to see the sports world react to a Razorback player. That was one of the top greatest moments for me as a Razorback fan, and I was nervous for him. Throwing 97 in the 9th inning is insane. I agree. I mean, if you're still pumping it 97, 98 in the 9th inning after throwing that many pitches, that's pretty darn impressive. I would imagine as you get that deep into a game, Joe, with a no-hitter still intact, adrenaline playing a little bit of a part there, but he was still humming it late in the game.
Yeah, it's wild. And obviously, their ace, Zach Group, did not give them the performance they wanted. He was out quickly against LSU, but that also preserves him for his next opportunity. So, really they could be in pretty good shape here if they can get his normal performance the next time he's out there. So maybe the Hawk, because that would still be, it's wild. Dave Van Horn having not won it. I mean, that's obviously one of the big storylines here. And another cool thing is that Cam Kozel, who was at Vanderbilt, who has now gone to Arkansas, his dad has worked the grounds. He's from Omaha, and his dad is a grounds crew worker at the College World Series. It's a pretty cool story. There's always cool stories.
Yeah, full disclosure, my TV has either been on the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Final, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for the super simple songs, or Reba on Netflix. As my toddler's still watching the Reba McEntire show. So there you go.
Still a big Reba fan.
Yeah. Every morning, her mom gives her the choice: do you want to watch Dad do his show, or do you want to watch Reba? And I'll just be honest with you, Joe. Most of the time, we lose that.
Yeah, that's understandable. As aesthetically pleasing as our show is.
That's right. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Some news involving Cam Ward yesterday that is pretty interesting and has some people upset about it. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
would you say your confidence level is before this break heading into training camp?
10.
You ever at a 4 or a 5 or a 6, and when did you get to 10?
Nah, I'll probably never get that low, even if I, throw a 4-book game this year. At the end of the day, I'm a gunslinger. I live by that. I always die by it. So Coach Callahan know what type of guy he has in the quarterback room and me. And so, I'm just thankful that I got guys around me to help me out, along with B.A., Brandon, and Will. And Tim in there, they help me out a lot, just getting me right with the protections. Then also the receiving core, they're going to be able to, compliment my game a lot.
That's Cam Ward on his confidence, which Joe he does have, which I think is a good thing, but some think maybe he's not allowed to have some of that confidence. He may be getting more moving forward here before he ever takes a snap on the field, Joe. Variety put this out there yesterday. Tubi has acquired a 6-episode sports documentary series in which they are titling Zero Star, the Cam Ward story, which is taking a look at how he went from an unknown high school player to the eventual leader of the Miami Hurricanes, and now, as Variety puts it, the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. A 6-part docuseries featuring Cam Ward. So, Joe, this came out yesterday, and there was some reaction around the league and around Titans Twitter to this news. So I'll just start with you. There was not the same thing, but, a similar discussion piece last year when Will Levis, had all the mayonnaise stuff and the Mayo commercials and the Mayo cologne that he was coming out with and all those things well, he's not really done much at the NFL level yet. Should he really be taking time to focus on all these things? So, Joe, I ask you, Cam Ward, a 6-part docuseries that will be featuring his journey from a 0-star recruit to being the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Is this a big deal? Is this a good idea from Cam Ward? Is this a bad idea from Cam Ward? What do you make of it?
Before I answer that question, I think we do need to get Jared and Gentry Estes debating. Maybe we need to get that, because Gentry's take on the confidence quote is like that was perfect. It is his defining characteristics. The most encouraging thing about him as a quarterback for the Titans. That's Gentry's take on the, replying that he's at a 10. And of course, Jared, I still don't understand his take actually, but obviously he has a huge issue with that. So speaking of huge issues with Cam Ward, let's see, A to Z Sports. Let me read a headline to you. If my computer will not freeze, which it is freezing. Oh boy. I mean, like, I'm right on the verge of being able to read this headline. I just have to go up 1 click and my computer free. Do you still have me?
Oh, I've still got you.
Okay. Well, that's good. So at least it's not like the entire thing.
I've got the headline if you want me to read.
Yeah,
it.
Read the headline since I can't.
This is from our friend Andrew, who says Cam Ward, 6-part documentary raises first red flag for the Titans' number 1 overall pick. And then he says, and get off my line. Get off my lawn in the subhead there on A to Z Sports.
Yeah. There's no minimizing this terrible take, Andrew. And frankly, I hope Jeff Simmons throws you into the water in camp. So let's go back to Levis. I said it last year. It's like, well, you better earn it. You better do something first, which I'm sure was like Jared's take. You gotta earn it. And guess what? Thank God he did it. If I'm Will Levis's agent, mom, if I'm him, his girlfriend, good thing you did those Mayo commercials, bro, because you're not getting anybody else knocking on your door right now. I mean, get out of here. You do not have to earn doing a commercial or anything that's going to make you money. If you've earned it by what you've done already, which is, get yourself to the point where you're in the NFL, yeah, go ahead and do that. I mean, again, unless it's actually like infringing, hey, coach, I can't make practice. There is zero discussion about these things other than just stupid discussion by people who would be complete idiots if they turned these things down. Complete idiots. So please spare me this pearl clutching over this crap. Now, I will say one thing about this. Does it really need to be 6 parts? That's the one. That's the one area. That's the one area where I would agree with young Andrew is look, one of my favorite 30 for 30s, probably my favorite, is the one about the Colorado Avalanche, Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, yeah.
Rivalry, and then we got our friend of the show, Darren McCarty, on there with his one tooth left in his head. And
Yes, we did.
You know, yelling at Claude Lemieux. It's fantastic. I could watch 6. There we go.
Oh, that's going to be
Nice.
awesome to use.
I could watch 6. I could watch 15 parts of that doc. Okay, there are things in sports that are extensive enough that multi-parts are fine. And like, you know, I mean, Jordan probably a little bit indulgent in himself for his 6-part series, but you know, he had to finish his 8 bottles of whiskey while he was doing his interview. So, I mean, he had to have as many parts as possible. I don't see why we need 6 parts before a guy even starts his NFL career. That would be the one thing where it's like, do you think people want to like? It's a great story. Incarnate Word, no star, all that stuff. His parents. The journey to Washington State, then to Miami, deciding not to go, bet on himself, be the number 1 pick. It sounds like a great doc. I would watch that for an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
6 parts. Like, are we getting into like what breakfast cereals he liked when he was 8 years old? Like, that would be my only thing that I'm a little bit puzzled by. And I think it's a miscalculation on the part of the people doing this thing. Like, he's the number 1 pick. He was a star in college football last year. That's great. I don't think people are going to be locked in for 6 eps here. But as far as him doing it, hell yes, you do it. And I swear, if I look at the text line or YouTube chat, and any Titans fans are complaining about this, like this is some infringement on him trying to be a great quarterback. It's just mindless. It's just brainless taking. It's a brainless take. Okay.
Couple things on this. Number one, I was consistent on this with Will Levis last year, so I'm going to be consistent on it now. Like, I had no problem with Will Levis and all the Cologne stuff and the Mayo stuff last year for exactly what you said. I mean, number one, it did not take away from his football. Like, Will Levis didn't suck last year because he was doing Mayo commercials, okay, or making Mayo cologne. That was not why he was not good at playing the quarterback position last year. So I have no problem with Cam Ward doing this. I'm with you. Like, I don't really understand the 6-part doc of it. Like, to me, you could probably do 2 parts and cover just about everything you need to cover.
Maybe they're only like 15 minutes.
Maybe
each.
so. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a mini
like
part.
TikToks. Yeah, here's a 2-minute little outlet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's I don't know. But
attention spans.
The
Good
6
point.
part of it is a little mystifying to me, but I have no problem with the general idea of it. And the other part is this. I mean, look, I can only go based off what we know about Cam Ward so far. And again, that's very limited because he's not been around very, very much to this point, and he's not taken an NFL snap yet. But the only thing I know about Cam Ward so far, based on the reporting around it and what his teammates have said, is that he's in the building at 5 a.m. leading meetings with all the rookies on offense about every possible detail of what they're doing at practice that day. That Brian Callahan has basically had to tell him, hey, man, maybe slow it down a little bit because this is going to be a long journey for you. And the work that you're about to have throughout the season, I need you to be able to sustain that. So basically, like, Joe, it sounds like he's almost working too hard. So I don't know that I've got a huge problem with him doing a docu-series when the guy is in the building all the time at 5 a.m. leading all the meetings with all the rookies. Like, it would be one thing if he's not putting in work and he's not staying after practice and watching film and doing all these different things. I mean, everything that we know about him so far is the guy's around all the time doing everything you could ask him to do and more. So when that's the case, I don't really care what you do off the field. Do whatever you want as long as you're not, getting yourself into trouble.
Just wait until that first interception. Oh, well, maybe if you weren't sitting down for an interview and a documentary, you would have been studying film, Cam.
I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, like, to your point, he's even apparently gone above and beyond. And some of that stuff, I'm also like, okay, that's great. Yeah, that's great. But it is like, you'd rather hear stuff like that than not, right? I mean, like when people just kind of like show up at the regular time and then go home when they're supposed to go home.
Yeah.
People don't talk about it, but yeah, look, this is, these guys. So for the next, what are we talking? The next 6 weeks or whatever it is, they need to stay in shape. Some of them are going to take some vacation, go see their families, go somewhere, whatever. and you work out and you try to take care of your body, and you can stay in the in the in the playbook and all that stuff, and that still is going to leave you like with all that. If you're going to work out, you got to rest, recover, all that stuff. That still leaves you most of every day to do whatever you want. And some will sit around and watch TV or whatever, watch TikTok or whatever you want. And some might sit down for a little bit and be part of a documentary. And like it's just people have free time. Whenever we know what people do with their free time, then people get mad that they did something with their free time as opposed to just doing nothing with their free time, and we don't hear about it.
Well, and also, like, what I don't know the answer to is, like, how much of his time is this actually taking up? Like, are they just interviewing him for, like, a few hours and covering everything they need to cover? Because I would imagine a lot of the documentary will feature him and, like, his thoughts, but it will probably also feature, like, people around him and his coaches and his former teammates. And, like, there's going to be a lot of people probably involved with it. So, like, how much time in actuality from Cam Ward specifically is this documentary actually taking up? I would have to say probably not all that much when you really break it down.
Yeah, I'm sure has sat down or will sit down for an interview, and then everything else is I mean, if he's cutting the tape on this, then okay, then maybe that's a little much.
Is he editing?
If he's dubbing in the sound, the sound clips, then that might be a little extensive. Jared says on the YouTube chat, okay, first part high school, then Incarnate Word, then Washington State, fourth part Miami, fifth part draft, sixth part expectations. Boy, again,
that's a lot.
Give me an hour. Yeah. Give me an hour, man. We can do this in an hour. And it's
I don't need that. I need an entire episode on Incarnate Word. That's just me. Really, even Washington State.
Like, what if Cam Ward or Cameron Ward, let us know, Cam or Cameron, which it is. But what if he turns out to be an all-time great quarterback? Like, and then there's actually all this stuff about his NFL career that would be good for a documentary. We already have a 6-part doc on the guy. Like, save a little bit of, save a little room for in case he actually lives up to the expectations.
And
but
next,
again, that's my only quibble.
Tubi is coming out with a 52-part documentary on Cam Ward.
I mean, every single NFL game we've condensed down to an hour. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I mean, it's a little much again. So that I think that it's a little bit of a miscalculation on the production side of it. But him doing it, absolutely do it. You have a chance. It is so fleeting. It is so hard to make it in this league or in pro sports at all. If you have any opportunity commercially, anything that can be, like if I'm Cam Ward, of course, his confidence is at 10, as we know, which apparently is a problem. Yep. Or it's an amazing thing. I don't know, depending on who you ask. But he's not, of course, not thinking about not making it. In his mind, he's going to be a 15-year star in this league. But you know what? He might be a 2-year flameout. So good thing you got that doc done. You can show it to your kids and grandkids someday.
615-737-1025.
There's no reason to not do these things.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, your reaction to the 6-part docuseries that apparently Cam Ward will be participating in. Do you have a problem with it? Do you not have a problem with it? I will say we have not had one person to this point on the text line that's had a problem with it. So we'll continue that discussion.
Kind of do.
Next. Do we? Okay, I must have missed that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Cam Ward, a 6-part docuseries that will apparently be on Tubi at some point, taking your reaction to that. And Rexrode, there is a piece from Will Levis that he talked about early in the offseason that you think fits in well to this discussion. What do you want to set up here, the audio clip that we're about to play?
I will. I do want to quickly get to this real quick, and I'll set it up. But the one, I guess this is the sarcasm from Jared from Spring Hill, says, what can go wrong? Too much confidence, thinking he knows more than the coaching, and the Titans case he might. And then a stupid documentary, which I bet he's going to be in too. That sounds sarcastic to me. Does he say he thinks he knows more than the coaching? I missed that one.
I don't think so.
And then Jared also says it's going to be funny when the Titans are 1-9 and he still has 10,000% confidence. This documentary is out there haunting him. I wonder if it'll end the 6th episode with to be continued. Again, the documentary is about his obviously it's about his path to the NFL. Like nothing's changing that. So
yeah, the path is the path.
The path is the path to the number 1 pick overall. And then I guess there's another doc to be made later about whether he was a total flameout, superstar all time, or I don't know. Do you make a doc if you're just like an okay quarterback? Like is Trevor Lawrence going to get a doc about his career? I don't know. But
here's Pervin Irvin.
But the idea, like that idea that the doc's going to be haunting him. Why? It's about his life. Like all the things he did to go from complete nobody and incarnate word to the NFL are still going to be true. Like anybody who follows the NFL kind of understands that you can be a great player. You can win the Heisman Trophy in college football, which is the best player in college football, and have no NFL career. It's happened many, many times. So, I just, the idea that, and then of course he still has 10,000% confidence. I don't want to overplay, ripping that take, but it makes no sense to me. You don't want the guy to have confidence, huh? He has to win a Super Bowl before he can have confidence. It makes zero sense to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd really rather him be really tentative out there because that'll go well at quarterback.
My confidence is about a 4 out of 10 right now. I mean, it's just
I'm scared I don't throw the ball.
Yeah, like again, I don't necessarily agree with Gentry either that it's like this amazing thing that was his answer. It's just like, yeah, that's what you would expect the answer to be.
Yeah.
Like I just it's not even like to me notable. It's kind of a whatever, fine question, and he said what he said, and I think I would expect just about everybody to say the exact same thing to it. But yeah, the Levis thing, there was interesting comment from Levis and conversation from Levis last week, about his path, and I thought this kind of weaves into. I could see people weaving this into the discussion, even if it doesn't belong. But here's what Will Levis said last week.
One thing I've kind of learned the hard way is there's no way to play your best ball if you have other things that you let kind of affect your mind and your mental, and I had to learn that and work through that throughout the season. Was able to have people around me to support me and get me back into that right mindset, and it's really hard when you're in the mix of things and in the fire like during a season, but I really for the first time after the season was able to kind of sit back, collect myself, realize that the mind space that I was in for those 20 weeks was not me, and I felt like I used that time to get back to base. And I'm not quite ready to talk on all of that quite yet, but it just wasn't in the right spot, and it's hard to pull yourself out of that when you're in the thick of it like that, and I'm glad that I was able to afterwards.
So there you go. That was Will Levis. That is interesting.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, and that obviously, he said at the end there he's not ready to really divulge exactly what that was, but not being in the right headspace, kind of the theme from that part of it.
Yeah, so now I could see someone saying, see, he was thinking about that next Mayo commercial and saying, Mayo tailgate be amazing.
Is that Lou Holtz?
The University of Notre Dame would never take that Will Levis.
Pretty good. Way to go.
Thank you. So I guess I took that as either one of two things or maybe both. One would be like the pressure of just understanding that and it's hard. Look, when you're in the spot he was in going to last year, it's like, here's your chance. You know, you're a second round pick, so you're not getting endless chances. And if this works out, you're going to make generational money and, you know, be entrenched in this league. And if it doesn't work out, then you're quickly going to be among the recyclable backups in the league. So I think that's part of it. I know there was also like a breakup too, so maybe that was part of it. I don't know. The whole that wasn't me. I mean, it sounds a little bit like excuse making, but also I have no doubt that like the the gravity of the whole thing probably didn't help him perform his best.
I would agree. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll have Sean Rourke from NHL.com with us later at 7:30. We'll get into the Cup final, which could end tonight with him, and a couple of Preds topics to get into with Sean as well. Stephen Holder from ESPN will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the AFC South and the Indianapolis Colts with him. All that coming up a little bit later in the program. Got a Preds topic I want to throw out there coming up next, including some interesting buzz around the Preds right now that I want to get to. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. Sean Rourke from NHL.com will be with us at 7:30 here on the program. We will get into the Predators and the Stanley Cup final with him a little bit later in the show. Joe, I'm watching this Cup final going on right now, and I can't help but just think about the quality of hockey that I'm seeing from the two teams we're watching and the level of hockey that we saw from the Predators all season long. As we know, there's an enormous gap between those two things that we just talked about. I mean, the Predators finished with the third worst record in the league, and they're drafting 5th overall, and a lot of questions about where this thing is headed with the Predators here. And I can't help but wonder, as I look at where their roster is right now, the age of some of their veteran forwards, frankly, the age of some of their guys on defense, namely Yossi, who has been such a great player for a long time, and you wonder kind of what the next step looks like for him. UC Saros and his contract is kicking in this season. So there's a lot that screams, hey, you better win right now if you're the Predators, right? We've talked about that. And then you look at the roster and you're like, well, are they really equipped to win right now? Like, can they actually compete for a championship with this roster? It's hard for me to get there based on what we saw last year, even if you think the coach is the main problem. Like, it's still hard for me to get there with this roster that they're competing for a championship. So I keep going back to this. Like, are they in no man's land? Are they sitting here trying to wait on a younger core that right now at the moment I'm not convinced has enough great players to really accelerate this process? Or are they just headed towards a trajectory right now where they're going to be bad for a few years? It was interesting. So, James Myrtle, who does a good job covering the Toronto Maple Leafs and different things throughout the NHL, he said this on the Leaf Report podcast, and he was talking about the Predators. And one of the things he said, Joe, was that he's not sure that the Predators, quote, see a realistic path to being good, and talked about the idea of maybe being willing to take a step back to be better in the future. Like, I saw that yesterday, and my first thought was, okay, well, you just signed all these guys. And as I've talked about, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that Barry Trotz has had conversations with Steven Stamkos and Philip Forsberg and Jonathan Marchessault and Ryan O'Reilly and all these guys. And the message has been, well, it may be a struggle for the next couple of years. Like, there's just no way that those guys would buy into that. So it leaves me wondering, Joe, where's this all going? Where is this headed? And is there a path out of this at any point? Or are they just kind of stuck in no man's land right now with no real end in sight towards being competitive anytime soon?
Well, those are all great questions, but I saw the thing from Myrtle, and I saw Vingan posted like a headline that he had written a few years ago, which is like, the Preds may need to be bad for a while to be good again, right? Which is something we talked about. I mean, we talked about for years.
Yeah.
And the whole, tanking and all this stuff and being real bad. And, sometimes it has worked. You get that right year, you get that top pick that's a really special top pick, or you could be you could be my beloved Detroit Red Wings, for example, and just be bad for a long, long time and still see really no path out of it right now to be any kind of contender.
Yep.
But my answer on the Preds is very simple. I mean, yes, I think it may be absolute pain. It may be headed for total disaster. It may be headed for coach firing. It may be headed for next after that would be Trotz genuinely on a hot seat and all that, and maybe looking at massive changes. But if you're the Preds, if you're Trotz, there's only one way to go, which is you have to figure out a way to be good right away. You have to. You've done all these things to load up for now. And again, especially you have invested so much in a goaltender who is not going to be better in 2029 than he is in 2025.
No.
He's not going to be better in 2028 than he is in 2020. I don't know how good he's going to be in 2025 or 2026. After last year, I have serious questions, but I do know that you're not waiting 2 more years or 3 more years for it to get better, right? You've invested a huge chunk in him leading you to contention. So you have to do it right now. That's all there is to it. And it may be disaster, but also, is it possible that things come together? They make some good ads. Some of these guys get back to, not having career bad years, and they actually turn into a good team next year. Yeah, it's not the craziest idea.
It's not the craziest idea, but I still keep coming back to where they're at center right now. And look, Ryan O'Reilly is their number 1 guy at center, and he's not getting any younger. Like Ryan O'Reilly, I was thinking about this the other day. On Edmonton or Florida, where would Ryan O'Reilly kind of slot in? And I think he would be like a really good third line center for both teams. And there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that. Like that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's where you're at right now. Like with where their roster is, they need one of 2 things to happen. They either need a Ryan O'Reilly or a Steven Stamkos to get in a time machine and go back a few years and be the player that they used to be, or they need one of these other guys, whether it's a Svechkov or whoever, to just accelerate really, really quickly. And I just don't know that I see either one of those things happening. So, I keep going back to, it just feels like the timeline of all these things that they're trying to fit through this small window here just are not adding up. Like the trying to, and by the way, I hear people saying that they should have tanked. Well, they unintentionally did last year, right? That was not the plan to be as bad as they were, but they were bad. So they've ended up with a top 5 pick here, and maybe
Which
this
was the worst case scenario,
right? And maybe this player, that they draft here in a few weeks, ends up being a franchise player, and we look back 15 years from now, and this bad season was the best thing that ever happened to him because they finally got that guy. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, in the immediate, I agree with everything you're saying about Saros, the contract, how many veteran guys you've got on your roster, and what you've done now to try to remain competitive as you're waiting on that younger core. I just can't help but, getting the feeling out of my head of the 2 timelines to me are not adding up. And I just don't know when the next time they're going to be good is. That's what I keep coming back to is, are they going to be, and I'm not even talking playoff team, because, we had the discussion about that around here so much throughout the last 5-10 years of making the playoffs is good and making the playoffs is fun and all that's great. When's the last time the Predators were a threat in the playoffs? I mean, you have to go back to probably 2019, right? That's the last time you felt like heading into a playoff run that they were a legitimate threat to compete for a championship. And that's a long time ago at this point. And I'm looking at where they're at right now, and I'm wondering, when is the next time that we will feel that way again about a Predators team where they are a legitimate threat to not only just make the playoffs, but compete for a championship?
No, that's a great question. Look, at some point in the not too distant future, I think we're going to be talking about a young, bad team, or on paper, bad team with some. We're going to see how some of these guys come along and things like that. And their top line guys will have aged out. But I also look, if you're going to, this is where I defend Trotz's approach, is that if you're going to have Roman Josi on your team, and you're going to have Philip Forsberg on your team, who just signed a big extension, what are you going to do? You not want to try to take advantage of those windows? Those are great players.
For sure.
I mean, Josi won the Norris not that long ago. So it's also for their benefit, right? Those guys, obviously, they're seeing their career wind down and they want to compete. So I promise you, those guys react, and we know they publicly they did. Those guys reacted the same way we did a year ago when Trotz made all these signings, which is, yes, we got a chance now to do something, and it just went terribly wrong, and they unintentionally tanked, like you said. So look, at some point here in the future, it's gonna have to be the young guys, and certainly like they have draft capital, like they'll be able to make some moves and try to be competitive, but it's gonna be a totally different looking team. But right now, the only approach to me is what can you do? Like you laid out perfectly at the center, down the middle. It's just what's the answer? I mean, can they go get a Sam Bennett? I doubt it, but like that's the type of thing they would have to do to really change the math, or just there's going to have to be some unexpected emergence or whatever like that right now doesn't look very likely. But you have to try to build around what you have now to win next year. You have to.
Well, I think Barry Trotz hit it on the head when he talked about this part of it, which we probably don't talk about enough. I mean, the roster right now is loaded, with 30-year-olds and 32-year-olds and 34-year-olds and all that, right? So you've got that side of it. It also, I mean, over the last year, they've had a lot of 22-year-olds and 21-year-olds and 23-year-olds kind of come up. They are really light on impactful 26, 27, 28-year-olds, right? And that are kind of right in the meat, right in the prime of their careers. They just don't really have those guys. I mean, look around. How many of those guys that are, I'm not just talking roster fillers, I'm talking impactful players. How many of those guys do they have? Not very many. So, like, how do you get those guys? Because we talked about free agency. It's not great this year. I mean, I guess unless you want to get involved in the Mitch Marner sweepstakes, and I don't think that makes sense really for either side to do that. So I don't expect that to happen. I mean, Sam Bennett, all the reporting around him right now, he ain't getting to free agency. Like, he's staying in Florida. So there are limited answers on the free agent front where those type of guys generally become available. So then it says, all right, are you getting into the offer sheet part of this? Are you getting into the trade part of this? I mean, the one thing that they've got going for them is they're actually in pretty good shape salary cap wise, and they're about to be in great shape salary cap wise over the next couple of years as this thing goes up dramatically. So that's the one way where you look at it and say, all right, you got some room to operate here. I just think based on where their roster is right now, it's going to be really, really, really difficult for them to put together a team, in my opinion, next year. And I'm not talking about just making the playoffs. It's going to be a really difficult challenge to put together a team that is an actual threat to win a championship next year. And go back to last year, Joe, when they signed all these guys. Not even sniffing competing for a championship when you made all those moves. If you would have told us that, and plus, one of those moves is signing the goalie. If you would have told us that, I mean, I think everybody around would have been deeply, deeply disappointed in that.
Shocked,
yeah.
Really, like that they were one of the worst teams in the league. That's a shocking outcome. Texter says Trotz made the moves, but didn't really double down, didn't really have the centerpiece needed, and didn't try to make the coach change to get what's needed out of the roster, playing both sides. Yeah, I mean,
one of those things is the hard thing to do.
Exactly. Like he's wanted to try to add the centerpiece. I mean, that's he's been trying to move up in the draft and do a lot of things, but it hasn't worked out. And I think the Marchessault ad last year was kind of, I don't know, almost like an add-on, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this more offense, another winger who can score. Yeah, this team needs that too. But again, like it's not. Yes, there are two timelines because I think every team has two timelines. Like every organization has to mind its farm system and has to, like, you want to be thinking about the next way. But like when you sign Saros, you're not playing both sides. You're not hedging your bets. To me, let's go. That's what you're saying.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Do you feel like the Predators are in no man's land? And is there a way out of it in the short term? Take your thoughts on that on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Yeah, Barry, without major changes in the coaching staff, without probably major changes on the roster, what gives you the confidence that the results are going to change and a lot of the buy-in and things you're talking about are going to happen?
Well, I'm obviously I think the meetings have happened, the feel of the group. I must say the group has a chip on its shoulder, which isn't a bad thing. When you go into the year with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, I think you'll get a team that hopefully will respond in the right way.
That's Barry Trotz as the offseason began for the Predators. Taking your thoughts on the Preds, 615-737-1025. Question I've thrown out there is, are they in no man's land? And is there any way in the short term out of it heading into next year? I mean, really, it comes down, Joe, to what does Barry Trotz have up his sleeve for this offseason? Because, I look at where their roster is, and if you're bringing the same roster back, maybe, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to be as bad as they were last year, right? Like, I think there's probably some natural course correction that will take place. But again, I'm not talking about being better next year and going from the third worst team in the league to a team that's like scratching and clawing and fighting to try to get that last playoff spot, right? Like, I'm trying to figure out, when is the next time that they're going to be a legitimate threat? And that is the question right now that I can't answer. So in the short term, trying to maximize your goalie, trying to maximize whatever it is that Marchessault, Stamkos, Yossi, O'Reilly, that group have together. You've got Forsberg in the mix with all this. Is there a way, if you're Barry Trotz, that you can do enough this offseason to get this team back to being an actual threat next year? It just feels like, looking at it right now, not only with them, but with some of the other teams that are in the West right now, it feels like they're just a long, long way away from that. So how does that affect what they do or what they try to do this offseason? It's going to be really interesting to see what Barry Trotz has up his sleeve on that regard.
Yeah, look, to me, he's painted himself into the corner of, you have to approach this like you got to the conference final last year and you're just and you're a piece or two away. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't there's no argument to me otherwise. Like, there's no bet hedging at this point. Like someone says, when all these guys, next time the Preds will be like actually competitive, all these guys will be done playing. That may be true. That's probably what I would guess too. But you have to try to add and to load up right now. You have put yourself in that position. Like Raymond and Franklin says, yes, Joe, signing Saros was the let's go move. However, it was the wrong move. Yeah, we agree with that. We said it before he made the move, but he did make the move. So now that he's made the move, what are you supposed to do? You cannot undo that move. So having done that move, I mean, a lot of the strategy for next year is just pure hope, starting with Saros, right?
Yeah.
Pure hope that he is Vezina level good. And of course, they need to help him more and all that stuff. There's any aspect of this team, there's a certain level of, man, this guy needs to be better. Boy, this guy sure needs to be better. Like, there's only so much you can do. But your moves have to be moves as if you're the GM of a team that is very close to winning a Stanley Cup, as ridiculous as that may sound.
Well, and then it becomes, what's attainable that's out there. The Myrtle's comments are interesting in terms of, like, he's not sure the Predators see a realistic path to being good. I mean, I would assume that he's not just pulling that information out of thin air. And like, James Myrtle has been a person that has been pretty reputable over the years.
Sounds like they were kind of speculating about putting Ryan O'Reilly back on the list of people to kind of look for, I guess, for the Leafs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, I hadn't listened to the audio. I was just reading the transcript. But, Nashville kind of in the same boat. Are they trying to be good or not? So, yeah.
It's a really interesting, but if that's the way they approach it, Joe, like, can you imagine going from, all right, well, they made the playoffs maybe quicker than we thought. Let's go get Stamkos, Marchessault, and try to get this thing competitive and sign the goalie and all that, to then, like, a year later, just pivoting off that and I guess going into rebuild mode at that point. Like, I just don't know how all that's going to go over with your fan base.
It would be absurd. Like, I'm sorry, but that then you're like, okay, so the GM just doesn't know what he's doing at all. That would be the reaction, and that would be the correct reaction. So I understand people are mad if they, whatever, try to just add to this and they go into next year, that people are going to be mad, and I get that. But to me, that's what you have to do. If you do something like that, again, then you're just playing it down the middle, and you are like you're completely directionless with your goalie in the early stages of this massive deal as he ages out of it. I mean, it's like there's just no, I can't, it boggles my mind like that. Yeah, you're right, Myrtle. There's no way that's just out of thin air. But what are you saying then, Preds? If that's coming from the Preds, what are you saying?
It's a great question.
You are considering saying, you know what? We just botched everything and never mind. I mean, that's just disastrous GMing.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Sean Rourke from NHL.com will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the Predators and their situation, get his thoughts on the Cup final tonight, which could end with another championship with the Florida Panthers. All that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Cup final tonight, Florida with a chance to close it out. And to help us talk more about that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our buddy Sean Rourke from NHL.com. Sean, good morning, brother. How are you?
Good morning. I just need to start. Somebody thinks that you're not hip.
There's a lot of people that think I'm not hip. It's a
They're
long list of
wrong.
folks.
They are wrong.
I agree. They get a whole lot more hip than this show. Me and Rex together.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of hip, Sean, I just have to tell you, a couple weeks ago, I went to see Pantera opening for Metallica. I know that's easy listening to you, but I just want you to know they freaking rocked.
That's awesome to hear. I'm going to see Pantera and Amon and Mark this summer, which should be phenomenal.
Nice. Very nice.
Nice.
So it's been a heck of a final so far, Sean. And, you know, we all expected it with the rematch between Florida and Edmonton this year. When Florida is on, we probably haven't talked enough over the last couple of years of just how good they are and how dominant they are. But what do you make of where things stand now with Florida back at home, a chance to close things out tonight and win back-to-back Stanley Cups?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. When Florida's on, they're a menace, right? And that's what they were in Game 5, right? That was a masterclass. Everybody's walked out of that game and said, "Oh, how could Edmonton be so flat at home?" You know, they only had 4 even strength shots halfway through the game. 30 minutes into the game, 4 even strength shots, 2 from forwards, and everybody's like, "Well, Edmonton didn't show up." And I would argue the exact opposite. I think Florida showed up in a way it hadn't yet in the series and just clamped them down. Their forecheck was ridiculous. Like, Edmonton lives on the transition. You know, they love to move the puck out of their zone fast. And every time their D went to pick up the puck, they got hit. And you know, the puck spent a lot of time in Edmonton's zone. And then when it did come out, it was intercepted in the neutral zone. So, you know, if they play that game, they're really, really hard to beat. And that's going to be the question. Do they play that game tonight? Because the one thing they do have is a reputation for not taking elimination games serious enough. Their record in elimination games is really not very good. You look at last year, up 3-0 and taken to a Game 7 that they win by 1 goal. So you're hoping that they've learned their lessons here, and you know, the team that showed up in Game 5 is going to show up again here in Game 6.
Was the goalie switch for Edmonton a mistake, Sean? How much of a factor do you think that was, if any, in the last game?
I don't think it was a factor, right? I don't think Calvin Pickard made a mistake per se. I just think that, you know, you look at those 2 goals by Brad Marchand. That second goal by Brad Marchand, there's a statue in Pittsburgh of Mario Lemieux.
Yep.
And the goals look very similar. You know, that was a goal where I saw Piers get up in the press box. Like, it took you out of your seat. And I don't know if you've seen the clip of Matthew Tkachuk, who just kept saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." Yeah. Like, that's how good that was. I don't think there's a goalie in the league who's going to stop that. I think that, you know, Chris Knobloch needed to stop the bleeding, and Calvin Pickard hadn't lost, right? I covered that series against Vegas. It seems like it was 3 years ago now in the second round. And you know, he had saved their bacon in LA after going down 2-0 with Skinner in the net, and he was at 6-0, and he got hurt, you know. And then Skinner came back in, and he had back-to-back shutouts after he gave up, you know, a really, really bad goal in the last second of the game to lose Game 3. And he was flying high. So, you know, I think he set it up perfectly, because now you have a chance to go back to your number one. He hasn't said who plays, but I would be shocked if it's not Skinner, because if that guy has any future in Edmonton, he needs to play Game 6. You need to put faith in him and say, it's your net, and here we go.
Totally agree with that. You know, Edmonton to this point, Sean, I mean, when they've had their backs against the wall, they've responded. I think back to, you know, the LA series where they were down 2 games in that one. They came back earlier this series down 2-1, and they win Game 4 in overtime. So we've seen them do this, but how big is this moment when you start to kind of look at the big picture of the McDavid Draisaitl era? How big is tonight's game in this moment for those two specifically?
Look, chances are always important. You don't know how many you're going to get. The hockey gods can be incredibly cruel. I think if you look at this team, you're going to say, regardless of what happens, Connor McDavid is going to get more chances to win the Stanley Cup. And there's been a lot of conversation about it. Dan Rosen and I talked about it on our podcast yesterday at the rink. And Dan's argument is that this is going to define Connor McDavid, right? Stanley Cups define players. And I don't necessarily agree. I grew up in New England, and I grew up with Ray Bourque playing for the Bruins. Not my favorite player, but a fantastic defenseman. And he never won a cup there, and they traded him away to Colorado, and he won a cup there. He didn't lead them to that cup. He was a piece of it, but they already had all the pieces in place. And he didn't win it his first year. He had to come back and do it his second year. And I would argue that cup has nothing to do with his legacy as an NHLer. Certainly for personal fulfillment, it's humongous. But Connor McDavid's going to go down as one of the top 5 players in the world and in the history of the game, no matter what happens tonight, tomorrow, or 2 days from now if he forces a Game 7, or if somehow he never wins a cup in his career. There's no denying who he is and what he is, and he hasn't shrunk from the moment. Although I will say this, in Game 5, that was his first goal in the series. I think it was only his second even strength point. At some point, we need to talk about Alexander Barkov and exactly how good he is. You think about the 4 centers he's gone through in these playoffs to get them here: Aho, Matthews, and Kucherov, who's not a center, but that line. Kucherov didn't have any goals after scoring 124 points in the first round. What they've done with Forsling and Ekblad, on the back end, but the checking ability of Barkov, who does have 3 Selkies, is ridiculous, and he's still almost a point a game player in these playoffs. I think he has 20 points in 24 games. So I've just been overwhelmed with how good he is. In fact, I think he's the MVP of the playoffs, but nobody else agrees with me with that.
Yeah, I think you make good points, Sean, on, I think we're overly obsessed with rings or like comparing players in whatever sport you want to go to. And, if this player has more than this one, he must be a better player. Or, if anybody watched Charles Barkley play, no one would say he wasn't an all-time great. He didn't win a ring. I would say that I would think that McDavid, when you're talking about the greatest of all time, you would hope that comes with a Stanley Cup or 2 at some point. I guess from his perspective, if they come up short, how does he view, that situation moving forward? Is it possible at all that, that he looks around and says, maybe there's a better place for me?
I don't know. I think he would be crushed in the moment. You saw it last year, and the behind the scenes footage that they had. The Amazon Prime show, which was unbelievable, and him completely losing his you-know-what in the locker room. But you see how much it means to him. He's been more determined this year. He's been great. Look, he leads the league with Draisaitl in points in the playoffs with 33. There's only so much you can do when you're talking about a team sport, right? You're at the mercy of who you have with you, right? And one of the things that I've always argued, you look back the last time there was a repeat Stanley Cup final, and that's Pittsburgh beat Detroit after losing to Detroit, and they beat them in Game 7. They won back-to-back 2-1 games. They're actually in the same situation Edmonton is now. They needed to win in Detroit, and then they needed to go home and win. They won each game 2-1. Sidney Crosby, no points. Evgeny Malkin, 1 point. Tyler Kennedy, 2 goals. Right?
Yep.
So you're at the mercy of what your team can do, because when you get this deep in the playoffs, teams go really deep and they have really good checking lines. Like we just talked about Barkov. So you're going to get neutralized, and it's going to be your depth that's going to kind of pay off. And when you think about this series, Brad Marchand has 6 goals. He's playing on the 3rd line with Lundell and Luosterainen. He's eaten Edmonton up in the matchup game, right? It's not that Connor McDavid's doing anything wrong, but they're playing him to a standstill. And then Florida's depth has stepped up to a point where they've been able to get a lead in the series, and Connor has no control over that. Like, he needs for his team to win the matchups when he's not on ice. And look, you can say all you want. He's a great player and he needs a signature moment just like Tom Brady or any other GOAT, Sidney Crosby, whatever it is. But more often than not in a championship game or a championship series, it's people that you don't expect that get you over the top.
Sean, last thing for you here. We were having a discussion about the Predators, and obviously an incredibly disappointing season here. You look at their roster, especially at forward. There's a lot of guys, on the other side of 30, kind of creeping into the mid-30s. Their pipeline has a lot of good players. I'm not sure how many great players they've got coming up, and it kind of feels from the fan base that they're in a little bit of no man's land right now. So how do you view the Predators and the job in front of Barry Trotz of not just getting this team back to competing for a playoff spot, but getting this team back to being a threat to win a championship?
It's a hard job, but I also think Barry is pretty qualified for it. You kind of learn as you go along here in the new quote unquote NHL that turning a franchise around doesn't need to be a long-term process. You look at the Washington Capitals, right? And they made the playoffs last year. They were the last team in. They made it on the last day, and they had like a minus 35 goal differential. They had no right to be in the playoffs. Everybody else kind of backed their way out of it. And they retooled a little bit in the summer, and then they were the best team in the East, and it didn't work out for them in the playoffs. Obviously matchups and whatever else, but that's the illustration of what you can do. Look, there's other teams that have been in the mushy middle forever. You look at a Detroit, you look at an Ottawa, Buffalo, all of those teams. So there's two ways you can go. I think, that Barry's shown an aggressiveness. I think that's a huge part of it. When you look at some of those other teams, they haven't been aggressive. They've been really patient, and they've been waiting for their youth to pay off and their youth to pay off. And then by the time it does, it costs a lot of money, and you have to start retooling your team right away. I think Barry has the ability and the willingness to make the moves they need to make. He's going to have a little bit more money this year, which is certainly going to help. And I think coming out of the draft next week in LA, that there's going to be a little bit of chaos, and I think that there's a good chance that Nashville could be in the middle of it.
Sean, great stuff as always, brother. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and enjoy Game 6. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. It was great joining you guys. Hopefully we cross paths soon.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Sean
Thanks,
Rourke
Sean.
from NHL.com, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. Cup final coming up tonight, Game 6 back in Florida, with the Panthers having a chance to close things out tonight and win back-to-back Stanley Cups. So we'll see if Florida gets it done tonight, or if Edmonton can force a Game 7 back at home, which would be on Friday later this week. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Iowa. Pre-game beginning at 6:20, first pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
See? He was thinking about that next Mayo commercial. Mayo tailgate be amazing.
Is that Lou Holtz?
The University of Notre Dame would never take that Will Levis.
Well, I don't get the rain man cold.
The NBA used to be great, and now the NBA, hate to say it, kind of stinks.
Hey, Jared, shut up. Thanks.
This is Amy's poodle groomer.
I'm sorry, did I stutter?
You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Joe, with that beautiful introduction in the background, I turn things over to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to let that music really sink in a little bit. Thank you, Bobby McFerrin, for that wonderful contribution to society. And that was a heck of a cut up there. So I'm going to talk today about the movie Sinners. There's a lot about Sunday that I guess could make me upset. One, I wake up Sunday with a gout attack, and I'm like, it's Father's Day. I'll be fine. I'll put on a shoe, and I just won't tie it. And I mean, it's just like a little bit of walking into the theater, and then you sit down and watch a movie. It's not that bad. That's probably a bad decision on my part. But I went to the movie Sinners. If anybody's seen the movie Sinners, it is Michael B. Jordan vehicle. It's caused quite a sensation. Actually came out like in April. That's sort of had like this resurgence here. And on Rotten Tomatoes, 97. And I mean, that's like,
it's very good.
That's big. That's heady stuff right there. Like the 97 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's kind of insane. I don't know. I am a Rotten Tomatoes. Typically, I find that the Rotten Tomatoes ratings give you a pretty good idea about a movie. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's go check this out. Now look, I knew it was R-rated, and so you expect there to be some adult stuff. And I knew that it was sort of like basically, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of half a movie about like Mississippi and the blues in the 1930s and half a movie about vampires. So
interesting.
Yeah. And overall, like I enjoyed it. I think 97 seems a little lofty, but it's good. Like I would recommend it if you're an adult. But here's my thing. And I know that I'm going to come off as a total prude here. And I certainly used to be someone as a teenager, as a kid, like when movies came out, when you're like, oh, there's a little nudity in that one, Revenge of the Nerds or Porky's or whatever. you get all excited when you're a kid that maybe you'll catch a glimpse of nudity. Like I'm not foreign to the idea of, R-rated movies. And I don't think it's like the end of the world. If you're like a teenager. But I brought a 17 and 14-year-old to this movie, and I just have to say, like, there were two scenes in this movie, sex scenes, that were so freaking graphic, in my opinion. Like, just way over the top, totally unnecessary, did not add anything to the movie. And that's my thing, okay? There are going to be adult situations in movies. I mean, it depends on the content. If it's a love story, whatever. I understand that you're going to have quote-unquote sex scenes. But this is part of why Katie and I totally disagree on Game of Thrones. Like, I didn't like some of the scenes. I'm like, dude, I don't want to watch that crap. Like, it's just too much. I don't want to watch like that level of graphic. Like, why? How does that add to the art? And I'm not saying everything has to be that, two people start to kiss and then you fade out until the next morning. I would probably prefer that. But like, do we have to be absolutely graphic? And how does that actually add to the art? I would ask people who make movies and TV shows, does this actually make your art better? And I think we've gotten into this. And again, I understand this is total old man yelling at cloud. I get it, but I don't care. I think it's kind of gross sometimes. And it's like, dude, like there's pornography for a reason. Like if people want pornography, they can go get pornography. But if you're going to watch a movie, and again, I feel like I'm taking my kids to, again, it's like a vampire kind of action movie. And we have these two scenes that are like, why does it have to get this graphic and this specific? What does that do other than make people in the theater, like especially me, very uncomfortable? I would ask
Extremely
that.
uncomfortable. Yes.
It's just, yeah, I mean, you know, and I've been there too as a kid. Like, I'm trying to think, like, I don't remember what, but there was like a movie I was watching with my mom. Maybe it was like,
That happened to me once too at the theater. I can't remember.
yeah.
I can't remember which movie it was with Jodie Foster when she was like the lost in the woods. It was forever ago. But yeah, there was a little bit of nudity in that.
Just looking
And I
around
was with
like,
my mom. I was
oh,
like,
good.
oh,
I'm
yeah,
here
that's
with my mom.
That's a little
Awesome.
weird. It wasn't even like sexual or anything, but yeah.
So imagine then take it to actual like a sexy, like it might have honestly been, and if anybody knows this, I know Big Joe, if he's listening, totally know the movie. I think it was called My Tutor. It was like a 1980s, you know, and it was just like on cable, and my mom's in the room, like, oh god. But like I'm sitting here, and of course I'm like to my daughter, like, turn away, you know. But it's like again, if anybody's seen the movie, you probably know the two scenes I'm talking about. And it's like it's not necessary. You could convey what happened in the scenes without again going into like about 30 seconds of oh my god, why? I would ask artists moving forward to use those scenes with a little bit of discretion and a little bit of asking yourself, like, does this actually make it better? Because I would say in both of these cases, no, it did not make them better. And basically, most people would be uncomfortable watching both of those scenes.
Well said.
Measuring cheek size.
And as always, I would just urge people, if you're going to watch a movie, you know, do the TED test, right? Like there are people that apparently show up to go watch Ted, who's an R-rated movie, who thought it was a movie for kids about teddy bears. And turns out that was not the case. So just make sure you know. Heading in there. Good stuff.
Yes. And if you're at a baseball game and your kid's thirsty, don't buy your kid Mike's Hard Lemonade.
No, don't do that either.
It's not just lemonade. Keith says, listening to Rex discuss this is making me uncomfortable. Well, I'm uncomfortable too, Keith, okay?
Somebody wanted to know if you walked out.
I did not walk out, but I was like, oh, God. I like I said, I told my daughter, like, turn away. You know, and then again, my son's on the other side of me. He's like, what? He was like, what the hell? It's just
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy
but
stuff.
Other than that, good movie. Check it out.
Other than that, it was fine. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Stephen Holder from ESPN will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the Colts and all things AFC South. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. And we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our buddy Stephen Holder, who covers the Colts and the NFL for ESPN. Stephen, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Doing awesome, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. First off, what's it been like in Indy with the Pacers in the NBA Finals? I know I've seen your tweets about that. Obviously, I'm sure the buzz is amazing around there. We'll see if they can respond coming up in Game 6.
Well, I mean, they're about the only team in Indianapolis that's won anything lately. So there's that. It's been the Colts haven't won a division since 2014. So Pacers are all we got right now. I would say though, it is pretty fun to be, to have a front row seat to it, and I'll give you an example. My kids, my son got tickets to a watch party for one of the road games down at the field house. And I was like, you know what, I'll go just out of curiosity. Let's see how this goes. We could not find seats. The place was packed to the rafters. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And so, I mean, we ended up in the upper deck. I was floored. So anyway, that's the kind of reaction you've seen lately. I mean, every sports bar is packed. I mean, on a Tuesday night or something, it's a really fun thing to be a part of. They are up against it though right now. So we'll see how that goes.
So Stephen, obviously, heavy interest around here in Titans land, looking at Indy and the quarterback competition between Richardson and Daniel Jones. What do you make of kind of where things stand with that right now? And how do you foresee this all playing out once the season comes around?
Well, first of all, I mean, if you're a team with a quarterback question, you're hoping you have the privilege of choosing between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, because I think, that's going to solve all your problems, right? It's not ideal. Let's be honest. We're here because Anthony Richardson has not been what they hoped, and that's for two reasons. It's not just performance, because I think performance you can be patient with a young quarterback. The problem here is the injuries, as I see it. Frankly, the frequency of him getting hurt, and so when you put those two factors together, you have a situation where you can't necessarily count on the quarterback, and that's not a good place to be. So anyway, they have decided going into this offseason they needed to give themselves some options, and Daniel Jones was kind of the best they could do, frankly. Not a lot of draft ammunition, not a good quarterback class anyway. I mean, the Titans down there, I guess, got about the only quarterback worth a dang, so I just think they were in a tough spot, but they needed to do something to shake things up in their view. So this is what they settled on. I will say this, as we sit here today, I lean toward Daniel Jones, not because I think Daniel Jones is some kind of long-term answer. He's not, most likely, but I think just in terms of being a known quantity, distribute the football. They have good playmakers. He can do that, I think. And then his reliability from an injury perspective, he gets a nod there over Richardson right now, who missed the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I guess I look at this, Stephen. I go back and say, man, Richardson came out with so little experience, with so much ability and obviously excitement, but so little experience. And was he rushed? It doesn't matter. You can't go back in time. Was he rushed into playing? Like you said, the durability is a huge thing. But I guess I feel like this could end up being a situation where it's like he loses out and it's like, man, was this handled correctly? And is there still a great player in there at some point? And if so, should he have been given a lot more time before he saw the field? But I don't know. I mean, also, his accuracy has been alarming. Like, do you feel differently about his ceiling now than you did when he came out?
No, I actually think the ceiling is still there. I mean, I think a lot of things have to happen for him to get there, but I don't think it's out of the question, right? I mean, let me be clear too. When I say Daniel Jones, I just think that's the way this is heading. I don't know that I personally would handle it this way, frankly, because I actually have a lot of questions about that. I think that, number one, when you draft a quarterback, you are you're tethering yourself to that quarterback and all the ups and downs that come with it. That's just how this works, right? A top 5 pick. That is a reality. Now, for the Colts, I think they understood that going in, and they said the right things and talked the right talk. But then when the reality hit, it's kind of hard to take sometimes. And I think there's a certain level of impatience right now in this town, and even inside the organization. New owners, right? That's a factor. And with Jim Irsay's daughters, and so I think there's some nervous people, frankly, and so a lot of fates are tied to this, and so the idea of waiting around longer for this to happen makes some people uncomfortable, in my estimation. And then the other thing that Chris Ballard has said, and he's not wrong, he said, look, Anthony may in fact become the guy we hope for him to be. He says, in the meantime, we have to win. And whatever it takes for us to do that, we have to do. We have a responsibility to do that. There's truth to that, right? He's not wrong. But I do think there are some contradictions in the process of where we're at now. There have been some contradictions in getting there. And one of them is you say be patient with quarterbacks. Well, I don't think that's what this is.
Steven, speaking of quarterbacks, obviously Titans going Cam Ward, number 1 overall. We all know the Will Levis experiment did not work out for the Titans. So what do you make of Cam Ward and the situation he's walking into with the Titans and the player that you think the Titans might have in Cam Ward?
Well, first of all, you're asking the right guy, because I'm a Miami alum. So I'm a huge Cam Ward fan. And I mean, he just gave us a transcendent season for that program. I mean, after what we've seen, frankly, for the last 20 years, was just painful, and some close calls with maybe being good and relevant, but nothing like last year. And it didn't end the way Miami fans wanted, but there has not been, I don't think, a single program changing player in that program over the last couple of decades. I don't think anything that compares to Cam Ward, because it usually has to be a quarterback, right? And they just haven't had that. And so I think with Cam, what you have there is a player who has magic. He just has a magic about him. And I don't know how it'll translate. We'll see, because he's going to have to be smarter. There are a lot of plays that he extended at the college level that he can't do that at the NFL level, not in the same fashion. He's got to be smarter, get rid of the football, holds on maybe a little too long. But he can do that because he is a superior athlete. And they made a lot of plays last year that should never have happened. They only happened because Cam Ward has that it factor. So with him, really, it boils down to putting players around him. And that can't all happen at one time. But I think over time, if he's who we think he is, if you put the players around him, he has enough of that sort of, sixth sense about him to make things happen and make those players better and to put them in position to win. So I'm very optimistic about Cam Ward, and I think he's going to frustrate a lot of teams just because he has that escapability. He has that, spectacular arm talent, right? So I'm really interested to see how this plays out. There will be some bumps in the road because that's just what happens, but I think he's going to have some really interesting moments this season.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Steven, you mentioned ownership change, of course, with the passing of Jim Irsay. Fascinating situation, of course, with his 3 daughters, and they're sort of sharing the duties. I know a lot was made of, the wearing of the headset on the sideline and things like that. And the quote, is this person full of BS? I mean, I love that quote. But in your piece, there's something that kind of going back to Anthony Richards, which I found really interesting, from Carly Ursay-Gordon talking about Richardson, who she says, quote, I think he has all the potential in the world, and if he wants to prove it, he can. He will if he wants to, end quote. And I'm wondering, I guess one thing I went back to is the tap out last year, which, obviously much was made of that. Is that the feeling that in the organization that he can still do more to make himself great?
Well, I do think, first of all, good instincts, because we had the same reaction locally here about that quote. And, I don't think we can necessarily assign motive to what she said, but I do think that Anthony has had to learn some hard lessons because, and not because, he's not diligent or not serious about those things. I think it's more about just ignorance. And ignorance, people have a bad reaction to that word sometimes. I just think that just means you don't know any better. And I think that's a failure of on his part and the organization's part. And so, for example, there's just an expectation with quarterbacks in this league that you're going to go over and above. And the problem with Anthony is that I think most quarterbacks today, most of these young quarterbacks who are blue chip recruits coming up, they grew up in a world where quarterbacks are groomed like pros at even the high school level. And Anthony was not like that. He went to his neighborhood high school. He wasn't at all the big national camps. He just was this superhuman athlete. And he shows up at Florida and they're like, oh, this guy's really good. Because he grew up down the street from the campus, by the way. And so, yes, he ends up at Florida because he's a local kid. And then he ends up in this world where now he is part of that group of quarterbacks, but he doesn't know how to be that guy, right? So he rolls up to Indianapolis and he's like, oh, this is great. I'm just one of the guys. Well, no, you're not. You're a quarterback and you got to be the first guy there, last guy to leave. That's just what it is. And the optics of that matter as much as the actual practical application, right? There's an expectation of it because everybody in that locker room wants to have the sense that you're outworking all of them because your job is the most important one. So that was where this hard lesson came from. As much as the tap out, I think it was really about like, we need you to take stock of what this job really is and whether you're doing everything you can to be successful at it. So I think it could be that quote, it could be a reinforcement of that, right? Which was said to him last year. And he has gotten a lot better from everything I've been told, but it is different. The fact that point had to be made. I just wonder why the organization let it fester for so long.
Stephen, great stuff as always, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. Good luck to the Pacers coming up in Game 6, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Stephen Holder, our
Thanks,
guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your reaction to Stephen, what he had to say, 615-737-1025. Our phone number, Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson has suffered a shoulder injury and will be out for minicamp next week. Shane Steichen would also go on to say that the hopes are that he will be back for training camp. The hopes are that he's back for training camp in a couple months from now is obviously a little bit alarming, but he has had a shoulder injury in the past, got tackled, had surgery, missed the season, came back last year. Obviously, he's had numerous other injuries as well throughout his short NFL career thus far. Shoulder injury, not good. Hopefully, this isn't something that has been lingering, and hopefully this is something he can get past, because this year is a year where he can explode on the scene as a superstar in the NFL, live up to the number 4 overall pick hype that he was just a few years ago. Daniel Jones has been brought in to compete with him. Danny Dimes looking to make Indianapolis his forever home after everything that happened in New York. Obviously, an injury in minicamp and OTAs is not great, but at least we got Danny Dimes there.
That was excited Pat McAfee on the quarterback situation for the Colts. Anthony Richardson and Danny Dimes battling it out in training camp coming up for Indianapolis. You heard it there from Stephen Holder, Joe. He feels like Daniel Jones is probably the direction that this thing is headed in Indianapolis. So what did you make of what Stephen Holder had to say on the whole Anthony Richardson saga currently going on in Indianapolis?
Well, first of all, Stephen Holder was awesome, as he always is. Great insights on the Colts there. And on, that think about the conversation we've had. And also, by the way, if you're a Titans fan, listen to Stephen Holder, you might have a little extra excitement today. This is a guy who I promise you watched every snap of Cam Ward last year playing for the U as a diehard Miami alum. So I think he makes some good points about his escapability, his sixth sense, and why he thinks it's going to work out. I mean, you listen to that, you got to be kind of excited. But on the Colts front, I think everybody seems to think it was already headed toward Daniel Jones, and that's before we continually get to this Anthony Richardson staying in one piece, and that may end up being his undoing anyway. But I thought it was really fascinating when you compare what Holder was talking about with, you do have to be the guy who shows up first. You have to be the guy who leads, all those things that Cam Ward, right, is already gets. Cam Ward has come into the NFL ready to do some things that you just sort of have to do if you're going to take command of a football team. And obviously Anthony Richardson didn't do it. I also think that, and Holder said this, a lot of blame has to go to the Colts. A lot of blame. So he's not ready. He doesn't get everything. He's barely played football, and they just throw him out there. And it just, you can't go back, but I just think it's just a huge misplay on their part going back a couple of years ago. So, from now it's going to be really interesting. I think there's still a very talented player in there, but as you pointed out, we've talked about, if you're that inaccurate, at some point, it doesn't matter if you can throw the ball 1,000,000 yards or if you can run a 4.3, right? It just that's what it comes down to in this league more than anything.
I mean, just watching him, Richardson seems as far away from being a really, really good player in the league now as he did when he first entered the league. And maybe that's not true. I don't know. But that's just watching him the way that I feel. You want to know a crazy stat here, Joe? Anthony Richardson is 23, was born on May the 22nd in 2002. Cam Ward is 23, was born on May the 25th, 2002. Anthony Richardson is 3 days older than Cam Ward. And we're talking about him potentially already being out of a job in Indianapolis, entering into his third year. Quite the kind of amazing juxtaposition there, Joe Rexrode.
Yeah, and so obviously hugely different paths to the NFL, but again, one of them has played so much football, and probably to his benefit, I'm sure it's to his benefit. There's a documentary coming out, doesn't need to be 6 parts, but there's a documentary coming out about the path that he's had to take to keep building himself into a player, whereas Anthony Richardson's so gifted, it's like boom, boom, and then here you go, you're in the NFL. And again, it doesn't mean Cam Ward's going to work out any better than he did, but certainly Cam Ward is way more prepared to start game one as a rookie than the guy who's the same age as him who did that 2 years ago, right? And there's no comparison there. Real quick, by the way, as I'm talking about Anthony Richardson and his lack of accuracy, Warren Sharp has a stat that he tweeted out about most accurate QBs when kept clean. Can you guess where Anthony Richardson ranked?
When kept clean, 29th.
33rd.
Okay.
Will Levis, 26, by the way. For people who think the whole Will Levis story is about, these killer mistakes, it's a big part of it. It's about missing gimmies as much as anything. I'll continue to say that. Do you know who number 1 is? Most accurate quarterback when kept clean?
Goff.
It's a good guess, but it's Kirk Cousins. And both of those guys are guys who Goff is 8th. I'm actually surprised he was that low. Cousins, Geno, Burrow, your top 3. Jalen Hurts, 4. Daniel Jones, 5, by the way, which is interesting. But,
oh boy.
But that just goes to show you. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he has a fraction of the talent of Anthony Richardson, like really, and of a lot of these guys who are starters in the NFL. But if you hit the strike zone and you paint the corner every time, that makes up for so much. And if you are all over the place and you can't command your fastball, it doesn't matter that you throw 103.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The problem is with those numbers, how often is everything kept clean? I mean, that's what it boils down to. Like, how often are things kept clean around you?
Well, and that's the thing, but that's why like the Detroit Lions. I know Adam Portland's gonna be mad at me for talking about the Lions. I swear I hate them, Adam. But that's like Jared Goff. I still think Sean McVay was right in what he did. I mean, he won a ring, so no one's really disputing it. But like, he made the right choice. He got the better quarterback in Matthew Stafford. But the Lions have put together such an incredible run game and offensive line and offense around him. He has looked like an MVP candidate. There's a lot of other situations in this league. We've talked about this, but I'll say it again. This is like he's such a great example of why we judge quarterbacks too much on their own and not enough on their conditions. If Jared Goff were with the Tennessee Titans the last couple of years, we'd think he's absolute trash. We would think he is a trash QB. He'd be on his way out of the league because he wouldn't be able to compensate for the lack of protection. And that is part of the evaluation of Will Levis. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter in this league or anything like that, but it's still such a huge deal. Now, again, when Levis is 26, still when clean, that tells you why he's out of a job right now.
Yep. Coming up next, there's another quarterback in our state that's spicing things up a little bit in a rivalry. We'll get into that coming up next. This week's Nashville's Best Deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals to use any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. I got some tickets to give away to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Saturday, June the 28th. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to the Preds Beer Festival coming up at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, June the 28th. Joe Rexrode, we've talked a lot today and this week about Cam Ward so far. There's another quarterback in the state of Tennessee that's spicing things up a little bit. What have we learned today on the Diego Pavia front?
My goodness, dude. I mean, you got to love this guy. Like, you got to love this. Give this guy a lifetime education, unlimited eligibility, please. I want him quarterbacking Vanderbilt until he's like George Blanda smoking a cigarette on the sidelines at age like 52 with the Houston Oilers. My goodness, this is amazing. So Pavia went on Bussin' with the Boys, which this episode apparently came out at 6 a.m. today, okay? So I'm reading from Zach Reagan's piece on AZ Sports. Zach Reagan might shade a little toward the Vols, by the way.
I think that might be the case.
But he said, here's some quotes from Pavia. Quote, Vanderbilt is going to run Tennessee after this year. This is going to be the new staple of college football. It's going to happen here at Vanderbilt. Okay, I got more quotes from Pavia. Quote, everyone wants to come to Tennessee because of Nashville. They want to come to Nashville, so Vanderbilt's in Nashville, and then we have the most money in NIL. Like, why not come here? So we literally just have to win this year, and throughout the rest of the year, it'll take care of itself. First of all, I mean, that's breaking news if Vanderbilt has the most money in NIL. I know Vanderbilt's doing better than some people probably think in NIL, which is part of why they've been successful, and also some terrific choices, starting with Pavia, who is an absolute program changer of a personality. But obviously these words will be amplified and replayed, and they'll be all over the Vols locker room before Vanderbilt heads to Tennessee at the end of the year next year. But I guarantee you this, he will go out on that field before the game. He will say those words to all the Vols too, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, one by one.
Yeah, I mean, so man, tip of the cap to Pavia. I don't know if he's going to be able to, back this up and beat Tennessee at Tennessee next year, but I do know that he has brought this like confidence and just it's swagger to that program that I doubt I would doubt it's ever had.
First off, I love it. Like anything, this is kind of similar to the baseball discussion. Anything that pours gasoline on the Tennessee Vanderbilt fire, I'm here for. So this is awesome. Like Diego Pavia, keep talking, and I think it's great. And I mean, frankly, Pavia, I think, is exactly the type of player and person that Vanderbilt football has needed for a long time, right? Like, number one, he's really good on the field when he's healthy, right? I think you saw injuries creep in toward the end of last regular season where he was not quite the same. And then I thought he looked more like Diego Pavia that we saw earlier in the season in the bowl game. So, number one, he's a really good player. And number two, the confidence, the swagger, whatever you want to call it, he's got it. And I think Vanderbilt football has needed that for a long time. I'm with you. I don't know that this Vanderbilt team is going to be equipped to go on the road to Neyland Stadium and take down Tennessee. They got off to a great start against Tennessee at home last year, and then Tennessee, as the game went on, took over the game, and it was actually probably one of Nico's best games that he played at Tennessee. So the quarterback situation for Tennessee this year going to be interesting to see, but I love it. I mean, I love the confidence. I love the swagger. Really, if you're being objective about it, it's really difficult to not like Diego Pavia.
No, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly not love the dude. I mean, he's great. And again, like he talks it every game. He backs it up in terms of like his play. He's got to be the toughest / most reckless QB I've ever seen running the football, right? And which got him hurt last year, by the way, and he wasn't as effective.
Yep.
Then they get to the bowl game, and it's like, oh, that's what it looks like when he can run again, But no, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't know how you can not love it. I got a texter that says, I like Pavia, but those comments sound delusional. if you take it away from, again, this will be talked about in terms of the rivalry, right?
Yeah.
Primarily, but I think, look, I think that he is also talking big picture here, and I don't disagree that. First of all, we've talked forever about Vanderbilt has advantages. Nashville is an advantage. Nashville is a draw. The SEC is a draw. The education of Vanderbilt, for a lot of people, is a draw too. That is attractive. Again, most of these, 99% of these players aren't going to the NFL. So that Vanderbilt degree is a draw. So now you do have NIL activated. They've got that going at this point. And if you have a good year this year, like I think Vanderbilt can be set up for success like it hasn't been in a long time. And again, maybe ever. I think Vanderbilt's an example of a program that now that they have, like, the stadium's going to be pretty cool this year. I saw it during the baseball regional. I walked through the stadium, and it's actually it's going to be a cool place.
Yeah.
It started to get there this year. It's going to be cool. You do have some money coming in, and you can make up some of the gap on some things that in the past you just had no chance of overcoming. Now more than you ever could. Doesn't mean it'll happen for sure, but if they have a good year this year, they win like 7 games, which I think is probably about the ceiling, 7, 8 maybe. I mean, you have changed the program profile pretty dramatically in a short period of time.
I agree with everything you just said. Now, I would also probably agree with the texter from the standpoint of Vanderbilt running Tennessee after this year is probably a little bit of an overstatement. Would be my guess.
Yes, that may be tough, because for all the advances Vanderbilt has made to get themselves more competitive, Tennessee still prints money. And, but this is, it ends up being this really interesting moment because the whole Nico thing has made it so Tennessee might just be like an average team this year,
Yeah.
like and so they might be, they are much more vulnerable. We'll see what happens at QB for them, but they are more vulnerable on paper right now for Vanderbilt to come in there and beat them. Now, we've seen Vanderbilt have success in this rivalry, but that was when Tennessee was miserably down. So it's hard to imagine Tennessee being, over a period of time, not being the better program.
It isn't. We brought this up earlier in the offseason, but I'm always interested to periodically check the lines and see if they've changed any. And they're still the same. Tennessee's over/under win total, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, is 8.5. So it's right where it was. It was 9.5 before Nico left, and now it's dropped down to 8.5. Vanderbilt remains at 4.5. And we've talked about Vanderbilt's schedule. It's the same schedule basically that they had last year. You just got Alabama on the road, Tennessee on the road, Texas on the road. So those are some pretty difficult road games that they're going to have to try to find a way to navigate. But if you're feeling good, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you can get pretty good money on more than 4.5 wins for Vanderbilt right now.
I feel good about that. I really do. I had this and now I've lost it on my phone, but there's a college football account that tweeted out, one of the most important things, experience is huge, but especially offensive line experience, that there is a pretty strong correlation between that and success. And Vanderbilt, I believe, ranks 12th in the nation with 120 offensive line starts coming back this year. So that's something to keep in mind. Between that and the scheme and what Pavia does in that scheme, they're going to be, look, they're going to score points. They're going to they're going to make plays. They're going to be fun to watch. They're going to be a problem for opposing defenses. And then we're just going to have to see what they can do in terms of getting stops when they play some of the better teams in their schedule. And one thing we've seen in the Heupel era, you go back to like Pruitt and Butch, and they struggle. But the Heupel era, so far, Vanderbilt has not found any answers whatsoever for that offense, even when it hasn't been that good.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We've got Game 6 of the Cup Final coming up tonight. We'll give our thoughts on that coming up next. plus a couple points on the Diego Pavia and Cam Ward fronts to wrap up the show with as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. David in Arkansas says, Diego's got too much confidence for a guy who hasn't beaten Tennessee. He's not allowed to be that confident. And then says in parentheses something that Stilly would say. I do enjoy the confidence discussion around here. I'm fine with Cam Ward and Diego Pavia having all the confidence that they have.
Yeah, this could be, boy, that confidence not allowed. You have to do something before I have confidence that I can open this jar of pickles, but you haven't opened it. You can't have confidence you can open it.
Does Joey Aguilar have confidence? I haven't heard from Joey Aguilar yet.
I don't know. Hopefully he'll respond to Pavia. We'll get this going. Hey, one quick thing on the text line, Robbie, I wanted to get to real fast.
Yep.
Someone pointed out to me on the Sinners thing, why the heck would you bring a 14-year-old to an R-rated movie? That's a fair question. I mean, my only answer is, honestly, like our oldest, I probably wouldn't have, but as a parent, you just graduate your standards, just continue to lower.
They deteriorate.
This is what happened to my baby sister too. She was just allowed to do everything while we were restricted. Like, oh yeah, let Trish do whatever she wants. So basically that's what happens with parents. So yeah, I took her to an R-rated movie. I mean, most R-rated movies, a 14-year-old, especially like a vampire and whatever. Someone also brought up the point of why are we so appalled by, graphic sex scenes, but not like someone blowing someone's head off. And I think that's a fair point to bring up, but I am. Like, I'm okay sitting with my daughter watching a vampire rip someone's throat open. I am not okay sitting there and watching a sex scene.
I mean, I was like 8 years old when The Patriot came out with Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger in that. It's it's a R-rated, it's a war movie. I watched it all the time. I was like, yeah, let's just turn on The Patriot as we sit here and eat dinner. And I was like 10 years old. So,
by the way, The Patriot has one of the absolute best / worst movie lines ever. Can I sit down? Sure, it's a free country, or at least it will be.
Yes.
Wow, movie making magic right there.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff. Cup final coming up tonight, Joe. You've got game number 6. Florida with a chance to go back-to-back and win their second consecutive Stanley Cup. Edmonton trying to stave off elimination and get it back to Edmonton for a home game for Game 7. We talked with Sean Rourke from NHL.com earlier. If you missed that, check it out, Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, thegamenashville.com. Joe, I'm excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be an uphill climb for Edmonton in that building with the cup being in the building. I mean, this is kind of the moment for McDavid and Draisaitl where, legendary performances are made. And I don't think it's some unwinnable game for Edmonton. Like, if you told me they won tonight, I wouldn't be shocked by it or anything. But I do think, Florida has figured out a pretty good formula here. They've been unbelievably heavy on the forecheck and forcing turnovers a lot. And as Sean brought up earlier, Brad Marchand at this point is just a huge matchup problem where he's slotted in this lineup for Edmonton, and he has taken advantage of that over the course of the series. So my expectation is that Florida is going to win tonight, Joe, and they're going to win the cup for the second time in a row. But we'll see if McDavid and Draisaitl have a championship-level response in them tonight.
Give me the Oilers. I think that they're going to figure out. I thought Sean Rourke brought up great points. One, making me relive the pain of not winning back-to-back Stanley Cups in 2009 and how Pittsburgh – I think he had it mixed up, though. Pittsburgh actually had to win the first game at home. Then Game 7 was in Detroit. They actually won. They won Game 7 in Detroit.
Yep.
But anyway, point being, sometimes it's the role player who comes out of nowhere and gives you that huge goal, right? So I'm looking at Victor Arvidsson, RV Hustle,
nice,
screaming down the right side, putting one of those one-timers in, and it might take something like that. Yes, it's McDavid and Draisaitl. They need somebody to come step up and give them something unexpected. And again, Marchand, I don't know. Does he have a chance to win the Conn Smythe given this? I think he should be in the discussion.
He absolutely has a chance.
And it's just an incredible pickup for them. But it's it's a guy that is not one of the stars, quote unquote, of this team. He's been a star in the league for a long time, but Edmonton needs somebody like that along with their stars. I think they're going to figure it out. I think they're going to get it done. I think we're going to have an epic Game 7, or maybe I just hope. Well, I'm going to go with that.
I'm pulling for that. I'm pulling for Edmonton to win tonight. First off, I'd love to see Matthias Ekholm get a cup and Victor Arvidsson get a cup. I think that'd be cool. Having said that, if they lose tonight, and if you're a Predators fan looking for, like if you're rooting for Ekholm and you're hoping Edmonton wins, if you're looking for some solace, if they lose tonight, this will be the 5th Stanley Cup final in the last 6 years for Corey Perry, and he will have lost all of them. He will have lost 5 in a row. Now Perry did win a cup really early in his career in 07 with the Ducks, but he's been to 5 of the last 6 finals, and then he would have lost all 5 of them if they lose tonight. I know Ian's just broken up about it.
Feel so bad for him.
No, that's the one solace that I take if they lose, is like at some point it's like, guys, Corey Perry, if you sign him, you will have the ultimate tease, and you will be more miserable than any other team in the league at the end of the year, because you had to live with that guy for several months, and then you also are going to lose every time.
He's a habitual line stepper.
It's kind of amazing. Like if they, if you're him, you just got to be like, oh my God, like what gives here? So we'll see if Edmonton has any response tonight, though. Joe, we got a lot of response on the Predators discussion earlier. We'll revisit that a little bit later in the week and get more people's thoughts on that. But just to kind of summarize it real quick, big offseason, and I'm not sure exactly what all answers are out there. Although Sean Rourke did say, Joe, that, and I agree, he expects a lot of chaos from the time the Cup final ends until the draft goes down and the start of free agency. And he wonders if the Predators could be involved in some of that. That is going to be very interesting to monitor over the next few weeks.
Yeah, they have to do something, but the something has to be, how good can you be next year?
We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Going to be a fun night tonight. Cup final coming up in game number 6. We will have full reaction to that on tomorrow's program. We will also continue to monitor the NBA finals as that goes on. And look, maybe Rexrode may have talked me in today to becoming a huge Coastal Carolina Chanticleers fan.
Go Shants. I mean, Shants. Isn't that weird?
I mean,
Shants.
Coach was upset about it. We are not the Chanticleers. We are the Chanticleers. Say it with me.
Yeah, all right, man. Take it easy. It's not a chandelier. It's a chandelier.
Marcus Mariotto. That does it for us today here on the program. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.